Welcome to the Gnostic Informant. I'm Jesus, the Logos incarnate, and you are about to attain true gnosis.
And welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And I'm with KaRAYgeous from multiple platforms. I watch you on TikTok, but you're also on that show, The Holy Trinity, very
It's
often.
Unholy Trinity, but yes.
Oh, I don't know why I messed that up. Okay. Unholy Trinity. Gotcha. But yeah, go subscribe to that, everybody. Go check it out. It's a good show. I was just watching you guys the other day, and pretty interesting. And so by the way, what happened with the you guys were talking about somebody was like invading the atheist convention?
Yeah, so there was an atheist convention, and the American Atheist Association had a convention in Atlanta over Easter weekend. And while we were there, on Saturday, a group of evangelical Christians came into the convention and were trying to convert us. And so, and they were not really willing to like comply with us, because like people from the convention had to come out and be like, hey, like you haven't paid to be here. And all of the guests, all of the people who are part of the convention, like all of them have been verified that they have had both of their vaccines, and we have not done that with you. So we need you, for the safety of everybody, and because everyone else has paid to be here, for you to go down to the lobby. And they were really pushing back on that. So me and Jesus, and then our friend Sickness of the Thickness, we were trying to talk to them and like guide them down to the lobby. And once we got there, then like they really singled Jesus out, probably because he was the man, but he was also, he is Jesus, so he is our beloved gay Christ. And so for a lot of evangelical Christians, as soon as they see that, it's like they have to save his soul to save Jesus's image.
He irks them for whatever reason.
Yes.
I would bet some of it's internal. Some of them, they got some internal things going on.
Right, and that's what like Jesus was being like, I'm sensing a bi, like my gaydar is pretty good. Like, and I was like, well, if you think it's a choice, you're bi. Like, if you
I've always thought that too. I've always thought that. If you're acting like people are making choices over here, it's like, are you making a choice over there? Is that what you're telling us? You know what I mean?
I was a devout Christian, and I have learned that I am bi since I deconstructed. So yeah. And so then they were trying to pray for Jesus's sodomite spirit. Those are the words that they used.
People who had that in their vocabulary, it's like, dude, really? That's in the word sodomite is in your vocabulary? What is wrong with you? You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Hey, Pasta Mike. Hi, Heathen Queen. Hi, Randy.
Oh shoot! Oh, look who's in the chat right now. All right, family.
Yeah. What
Well,
kind of pizza?
yeah, atheist pizza.
Atheist pizza. So there's okay. I was gonna make a baby joke, but
Go ahead. What's
yeah, I
the
like mine medium rare.
joke? So
So yeah, so then I mean that's the point where we were trying to have like a pretty like I was trying to have a respectful dialogue with them about like,
sure.
hey, like when you say that Jesus as a person, like that he can be healed from it, that is incredibly insulting because you're saying that he as a person has to like that there's something wrong with him and broken and that he needs to be healed for it because and they were like, no, but like you can be cured from it. Jesus can take you out of it. And I'm like, no, you can't rewire someone's sexuality. Like this is their sexuality. People can oppress themselves and suppress their urges because that is something that they, as a religious person, have felt convicted about. But that just means that they are a gay person who is denying a very key part of who they are as a human being.
Right.
And so like I was trying to speak to them. They started praying for Jesus' sodomite spirit, and I fucking lost it. I was like, "Are you kidding right now?" And then they tried to like take out holy oil and like anoint him, and I was like, for all we know, it was poisoned or something. Like,
You don't know what that
and
is.
then when that ended, like once there was like a moment of of um like a moment of pause, these white evangelical Christian parents that weren't with the evangelicals, they like came up and like were getting into our face and threatening to like punch us in the face because they're like, you're filming our daughters. And it's like, no, we're not. We're filming what is happening right over here. And they're like, no, you're filming our daughters and they're under 14 and I'm going to punch you in the face. And they like kept threatening to, like, the dad kept threatening to hit Jesus, and Jesus didn't have a phone on him.
What the heck?
Yeah, it was like that was something that Jesus and I talked about, was like when Heathen Queen, we'll talk. I can
I'd
help.
like to be cured of being straight. I just thought that.
I know.
Does it seem like my face is out of focus for some reason? It's like I'm trying to like get maybe I follow the finger back to my face and it'll work. There we go. Is that better?
Oh, there you go. But yeah, so like we were totally fine because like the evangelicals that came in, they were all people of color, but like they were, pretty like, even though they were crossing boundaries when it came to consent, like
Right.
being like, can I pray for you? No, we're going to pray for you anyway. Like they were never violent. As soon as these like conservative Christian parents came in, like we were like, we're going to get hit like this. Like we had to like, the hotel staff had to like come in and intervene. So it was wild.
At least they weren't violent. I mean, that's, you never know. It can always turn that way. Things do sometimes, but that's good.
Yeah, I'm really glad they didn't hit, because like I would have pressed charges. I would have been like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I saw that one clip that you showed with I heard you in the background being like, sodomite? What the and I was like,
I like at that point, like, and it didn't help because like when that happened, I was just fucking seeing red. So when these parents were like in our face and threatening to hit us, I was like, they're your kids. Be a fucking parent. Like in the year of 2022, where there is Instagram and TikTok, people are filming everywhere. So you need to teach your kids to be looking around and seeing if there are cameras. And if you feel like someone is filming you, for you to like go get an adult or to leave that area, because like you need to teach your kids how to be safe in a technological world. And instead they were like just getting into our face and being like, you're filming our daughters. No, we aren't.
yeah, that's true. This is the world we live in. Like, and there are public laws about filming, and you're allowed to film public places. That's just the way it is. If you don't like it, you just don't go to public places. I mean,
Yeah, there are some states that have like a two-party consent
right.
recording rule where like you have to have the other person's consent in either to film them. And because like I'm not from Georgia, I didn't know what those laws were. And so my friend Nat, Natty Nat from Heathen Queen, I know, right?
What'd you say?
Said, I'm glad I wasn't there. I'd be in jail. And I was like,
Oh
right?
yeah. definitely. I think a lot of us would.
Yeah, it's just like, what? Like, that whole thing was just crazy. But the rest of the conference, for the most part, was amazing.
That's good.
Yeah, they had some really amazing speakers like Mandisa Thomas and Dave Warnock and Seth Andrews. And
Oh, nice. Wow.
they had a TikTok panel that was just fucking incredible.
That's an all-star cast right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into some of these verses that some of these.
Yes.
Now, I just want to make this known that we're not just trying to bash the Bible and look how good we are compared to. But with that being said, this is 2022, and we should be able to look back at things that are no longer in line with the world today, and we should be able to sort of pick apart and sort of criticize things that some people today are still trying to hold on to. That's the purpose of, that's why I do stuff like this. It's not just to make fun of the ancient world or the Bible or Christians or act like I'm so much better than everyone else. If I was living in this time period, I might have been just like everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
right. But with that being said,
I just would have been infinitely more miserable, which is hard to imagine, but like.
Yeah. But after so many centuries of people breaking barriers or, social justice movements of the 20th century, and we live on top of the backs of those people right now. So
yeah.
we don't have an excuse as to why we should be and acting in certain behavior and ideologies, but everyone's in a different place, and we should be trying to engage with people in those places, try to educate instead of just, you're an idiot.
For me, it's about the fact that that like my issue is with the inherency doctrine, because if you can just look at it as like, this is a documentation of ancient people trying to understand their God, there's a lot of value there. And you can look at like historical texts from like people in that time, and I can read Aristotle and I don't have to agree with everything with Aristotle, because there's a lot of racism there.
A lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, but like I can still read it and like, like analyze it, and it's okay, because nobody treats Aristotle like his words are gospel. I mean, I'm not gonna say no one. I'm sure there's like one wacko out there, but for the most part, we don't. But because they are so committed to this, every bit of the Bible being God breathed and inspired and therefore true, they have to keep justifying and bringing those things, because they're like, well, if he was against, if it's the Bible is anti-LGBTQ, then it's still that way, and that it's still like that we still need to, because God said it once and his words are still true. And it's like, that means you have to accept everything that is in this.
And that's the problem. That's exactly where the problem lies. That's why I try to do videos like this every so often, to remind people wrote this. Like, if you want to sit there and say that this is a divinely like, this is, every word is perfect and pure and it's handed down from God to the prophets, then we're gonna have some problems here, because now you're gonna have to say that this God's some sort of. Anyways, we'll explain why after we show some of these verses. Let's leave it at that. So, do you want to start with any that you thought of, or I have a couple that I got loaded up that we can go with.
Okay. So we had a super chat come in that says like, what is the worst Bible verse of all time?
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Okay.
And I don't think it's one verse. I think it's literally Numbers 31. Like,
I think I might have that one.
Yeah, so like Numbers 31, because like Theophilus
happened to bring that one with me. But go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, so for like, this is the chapter, because there's so much more to this chapter too, because it's not only that God instructs, kill every man, woman, and child except for the preteen virgin girls, for them to keep as spoils of war. That it's that then they also, if you go further in the chapter, it says that there was 10% of everything that was sacrificed to God. And so 32 girls were burned alive.
Wow.
And
But
so it's like
it's even worse.
It's so much worse because it's not only it's like, okay, so this condones rape, genocide, and like human sacrifice all in one story.
Yeah. And then
sex slavery, like.
And then when you think it couldn't get any worse, you're given this. So they let some of them live, apparently. Apparently some of them got away. So God says to, is it Moses or Joshua? Whichever, I think it's Moses. Why have you let all of them? Why haven't you let all the women live? These are the very ones who followed Balaam's advice and caused the people of Israel to rebel against the Lord. They are the ones who caused the plague to strike the Lord's people. Now kill all the boys and all the women who have slept with a man. Only the young girls who are virgins may live. May you keep them for yourselves. Basically what happened, for context on what that is, he's saying, you didn't kill all of them. Why did you let some of them live? You're supposed to kill all of them.
Yep.
And that's not good enough. After everything that you said that they all did, after all that being said, it wasn't good enough because they didn't kill all of them. Yeah. And then he says at the end, well, if you want to save some of the women for some sex slaves, go ahead. That's fine. You could do that. That's
well, not the women, the girls.
Right. The virgins.
The virgin girls. Yes.
Which is like so crazy. And like I said before, I'm not trying to be too go too crazy on the time period because this is the time period, but for people to hold on to this today, that's a problem. That's where it's like, dude, where's your head at? If you think that this is something that should be held on to, especially Christians who claim to have this abolish the law in favor for Jesus, and Jesus is the new law. It's like you should be the ones that are really railing, really trying to separate yourself from this, but you don't see that. Even it's been my experience that today the Jews aren't holding on to this stuff. Christians are, which is like you see the Baptist church, evangelicals, they're the ones that are holding on to these verses.
Okay, so I can't speak so much for Orthodox Judaism because most of my Jewish friends are actually either Reformed or Sephardic. Yeah. But for the friends and the acquaintances that I've met while I'm trying to learn about other religions, because that's not something that as a Christian that I like. I always loved learning about it, but I learned about it through a Christian lens, Yeah. So I'm trying to open my mind and be more open-minded. And they were saying that the thing is that in Judaism, they believe that the Torah is a living document. So it's to be constantly wrestled through what's in there, but it's Numbers is in the Old Testament. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Sahi Luke. It's been a while. So it's something that I don't remember where I was going.
Oh yeah,
they see it as a living document, but also for Israel, it means wrestling or debating with God. So part of their identity is to disagree. They see part of the reason why in the New Testament that Jesus is shown to be so impressive is when he went to the temple as a boy, he was ready to debate as a pretty young child. And that was not the norm within there. You usually had to go to school for years before you would be able to debate. So that's a big part of I've spoken to some people who are Jewish where it's okay, so why is Judaism not so anti-LGBTQ as Christianity is, when a lot of the verses that they use are in the Old Testament? And they're well, some of people believe it's a mistranslation, but also some people just disagree with God.
Yeah. And that's the word Israel. The word Israel actually means wrestling with God. That's what
right.
Jacob was renamed. Jacob literally just has a fighting match with an angel. And then then right after that, God's like, I'm just, that was a good fight, bro. All right, I'm gonna change your name. I'm gonna change your name from now on to Israel. You just fought with God. It's and that's the whole point of the Talmud. They're disagreeing and okay, let's disagree. Let's hash this out. Let's hash out our arguments. I think that's a better approach to religion than just being this is what it says and this is what we have to do now. If you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
And I think that like that's a big part of, because it's not encouraged. That's why there's like, when people aren't encouraged to question and debate and to wrestle, that's where like so much of the indoctrination comes in. But it also, that brings back to the point, to the inerrancy doctrine, because some of the people who are Jewish still believe in inherency, but they believe that, like, so for example, they believe that if there's something like horrible in the Bible, that God left that in, like let it still be in the Torah, because he wanted to teach you something about humanity.
Yeah.
Or that if there's like a mistake, they wanted you to like catch them, that God like wanted you to catch the mistakes and like wrestle with it and like look at the text further to try to see what it's saying. So it's like, it's still inerrancy, but they don't try to like justify when the Bible's shitty.
Right.
And that also seems like a more healthy way to look at it too.
Absolutely.
Is to be able to just be like, yeah, like the
I didn't
pagans
even notice it was on. I never saw this one came on. It must have came out during the intro, maybe. I didn't see this one, but yeah, thank you for the super chat. The pagans did not have anything better going on.
I don't know what the context for.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a comment, a drive-by comment, but I would say to some degree I agree, because the Roman imperial cult, they still had some pretty, had some practices that were still pretty, anti-women or anti. They're still pretty much like there's whole pious thing going on of like who's there's still a hierarchy, it's still patriarchal, but it also had goddesses, and there's at least some degree of matriarchy happening. So I think it was better, to be honest. Like honestly, I think the pagans had a better, but I'm not going to say that they were perfect. That's why I say to some degree I agree with what he's saying. Like they weren't like perfect, but it is the times. That was the times,
Yeah. No, I definitely I would agree with that. And some of it can be, because I've been learning more about paganism too. Like I have a number of friends who are pagan, and also like practice witchcraft. I also know people who are secular witches, and I'm like just wanting to like learn about everything, because like even when I was in college, I like took courses about other religions, and I took like a seminar on religious cults, and I've always been fascinated with what people are willing to do in the name of a god, and then the psychological warfare within those things. Like so with like Jonestown, if you can convince an otherwise completely rational and sane person that he can't sleep with his wife, but I can, and it's an honor, that's power that you have over another human being that you cannot buy.
Yeah.
Like, so it's pretty wild. Yeah.
And speaking of that, what you just said reminded me of it. Let's go to the New Testament for a couple verses.
Okay, yes, let's talk about the New Testament.
Yeah, because there's problems like this one, for example. This is what I just thought of when you mentioned Jonestown, because this right here.
Yes.
If anyone comes to me and does not hate their father, their mother, their wife and children, their brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Wow. Like really, that is intense. And that's where cults start. That's where division in society starts, because now it's us versus them. Just like he says, let the dead bury the dead. Come follow me. Like your parents just died, and he's telling you, forget that. Follow me. That's terrible.
Well, no, and that's literally so someone that I follow on TikTok and Twitter, and I've become friends with her, and she's amazing. Her handle is I Blame Bill. And she talked about how as a kid, like you're taught that if you love anything more than God, anything at all, it's an idol and therefore a sin in your life. And so when her mom died of cancer when she was 9 years old, she believed that she had killed her mom because she loved her more than God. And so God had to then punish her to make sure he was number one.
Wow.
And it's like, so like literally when she deconstructed, she had to learn that she did not kill her mom.
That's got to be traumatic.
Oh, you want to talk about Timothy? Let's talk about Timothy, Mummy Val.
Oh, nice. Thank you for the super chat. We got a new super chat. What about the verse? That's another one I brought today. That's seems like we're all on the same page here today.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I have one that I'm going to bring up, and it's like not even evil. It's just something that broke my brain. As
Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's
yeah, but let's talk about Timothy first.
Oh, that's not it. I apologize. I don't have these in order, so let me just I think this might be it right here. No, it's not. Okay, sorry about that.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, I'll find it. It's in here somewhere. I know I brought it. Here it is. Okay. Let a woman learn in silence with full submission. I permit no women to teach or to have authority over a man. She is to keep silent. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived. But the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing, providing, now this is providing, she has to do this first. They continue in faith and love and holiness with modesty. And then I didn't bring the next verse, but it talks about women should cover their heads in church or it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
That's the next verse after that, but I didn't have enough room for it.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to tackle there. And like we won't even get into the fact that like Second Timothy wasn't written by Paul, because a lot of evangelical Christians don't know that, refuse to accept it, and so they treat it as inerrant.
You know what gets me about verses like this in the New Testament compared to the Old is that, like, I get that Paul's epistles were first, but it's like, but Jesus lived before Paul, so the Gospels are relating what happened with Jesus. If we're to take it seriously, the verses, like the parts in red, I guess, with red letter Bibles, the things that Jesus actually said, then
Yeah.
it seems like they don't line up necessarily with what Paul's saying. Like, let me give you an example. This is I keep going to the wrong part.
It's okay. That's a good one though. Pharaoh.
Here we go. This is what I wanted to get to. So in Corinthians, Paul says, "Know ye not that unrighteousness shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor adulterers, effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind." But what's funny about this King James verse is that I think King James purposely switched this up because it's really, if you go to the Greek, it's talking about homosexuality. And we know that King James was bisexual. So good on him, by the way, for switching that up. He took that part out and says he changed it to effeminate or abusers of themselves. Like, okay, that's way better, by the way. And it's funny how the King James only Christians, it's ironic that they're the ones who are the most against homosexuality, but their Bible doesn't even have that part in there.
I know.
So I say all that to say this. Okay, so this is what we get from Jesus, though. Whoever liveth, believeth in me, shall never die. That's it. He doesn't say anything unless you're a fornicator, unless you're an adulterer, unless you're this or that. He didn't say nothing like that. So how do you go from that to, oh, women need to do this, women should do this, or homosexuals can't go to the kingdom of heaven, fornicators can't go to the kingdom of heaven, adulterers? Where does all this extra stuff come from?
I mean, I think it came from a lot of different things. So, I mean, women were essentially just a notch above, like livestock to them. So, you know, like if you think about it, and it's just like a horrible way to think about it, but people like, so the people who wrote the Bible never imagined a woman would ever read it. And so because of that, because like I don't expect, like if I write something, I don't ever expect my dog to be able to read it or another dog to be able to read it. Like maybe like through like billions of years of evolution, maybe they'll be able to read. But that is not something that I have that expectation. And that is how they saw women. So the entire Bible is written through the male gaze. Women are something to be controlled, to be oppressed, to make sure that you know, like that they are behaving in a proper way. And I've heard that in that particular church that this letter is supposed to be addressed to, it had an issue with women who were like shouting in church, like literally like shouting at the pastor or like the rabbi at that time. And so this was why Paul was writing that letter, although actually wasn't written by Paul. So for all we know, it was someone who was like just trying to impersonate him to just pass on a bunch of misogynistic bullshit.
That makes a lot of sense.
Like,
Like that's probably what happened. Like people were
yeah.
writing things in the name of Paul because Paul had so much authority. So it's like, how can I get people to do what I want? Well, I'll just say Paul wrote it. They'll listen to that.
Right. And it's like, that doesn't make sense because Paul used women in his ministry. He used them as, like, actively used people like Phoebe and Thecla. And, you know, so like the fact that he would have been like, yeah, no, women be silent. And like the way that that has been used to oppress and abuse women is unbelievable. And that's part of Myth Vision. Hi.
Oh, there we go. Another super chat.
Oh.
Derek, thank you for the super chat, my brother. He said, "You will burn, gnash your teeth, get beaten, outer darkness forever and ever." But I love
it. Someone on TikTok put this on Heathen Queens, like in a comment, but saying that like in hell that there will be the bashing of teeth. Because like I guess they didn't realize there was a difference between bashing and gnashing. And right? And so like, do you remember the cult classic horror film called Teeth?
Yes.
Yeah, so like I made a TikTok about it. I responded to that comment and I had the like movie poster for Teeth in the background and I was like, there will be wailing and bashing of teeth. Like bashing of teeth, I'm in. Like, let's get popcorn. Like
that's weird. Canadian Catholic comes in.
Oh.
Entered the chat. You know, everyone knows this evil character, and I'm just joking. How likely is it that Neal Sendlak, spells my name wrong, will become a conspiracy theory uncle when it's his midlife? I don't know, man.
Not very likely.
Good question, but time will tell, right? Time will tell.
I mean, I think we all see like we see patterns and we try to like connect them and like make sense of them in some way. Like, so I'm an atheist and I don't believe in like things where there isn't like data to back it up. So like I don't personally believe astrology is real, but I'm not one of those atheists that's like, well, that's all bullshit and you shouldn't use it, because like to me it's not like, I find it way more fascinating how people use it, because what they're looking for is they're trying to make sense of themselves and people around them.
Yeah.
So like I'm way more interested in why people are using astrology and like to help them connect with others than like me actually thinking that like it's a legitimate science. And there are even some things within like the atheist community when they'll be talking about how like Paul's a Roman plant, and I'm like,
right,
I need evidence. I need like concrete evidence to prove this, because otherwise you're just coming up with like your own like you're doing what we accuse Christians of doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another thing
Happy
about
to
that,
dash the babies against the rocks to rip the fetuses out of the mother's pregnant belly.
That's from Psalms. I just found it. I'm just going to pull it up real quick just so people can see it. But yeah, to what you were saying though, another thing about the astrology thing is like people were trying to connect with the universe somehow. So like, okay, it's up there. Let's see if we can. It's telling us something. We're connecting to it. You know what I mean? Blessed will be the one who seizes and dashes your little ones against the rock. What? Some weird stuff going on in the you know what I mean? But yeah, no, that's a good.
Do you have 1 Corinthians 14:34 on your list?
This one? No, that's 629. That's the one we just had. No, I don't.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Got a super chat asking about it.
Oh, okay. And then, where's that one at? Is that in the bottom? Oh, I just saw it. Okay, there it is. John Maker, thank you for the super chat. As 1 Corinthians 14:34 on your list, women must remain in submission. KaRAYger makes argument that is later an interpolation. Either way, inappropriate. True. Yeah, it could be an interpolation. I mean, KaRAYger knows what he's talking about.
So here's what my pastor used to share about that, because I actually went to a pretty progressive church.
Sure.
This particular verse comes out of fucking nowhere. If you read the whole chapter, the rest of the chapter has nothing to do with any of that. It's like, and it goes right back to the topic. And so So the way that I was taught, what my pastor taught, was that he was trying to quote somebody else and explain like why that was wrong. Or the other theory that I have heard, and now that I am no longer a Christian, is that it's that like someone added it in, like when they were creating like the
Yeah.
later
That's what he
version.
was saying. I think he said that at the end of his comment. Yep. It's a later interpolation, which like based off what you just said, that makes a lot of sense. That the church was getting more and more, sexist, I guess, and they just decided to throw that in there. And look, Paul said this too. He said it in 2 places now, which would make sense. I guess I missed someone in super chat. Canadian Catholic says, "I can see you yelling about Jesuit and Rothschild conspiracies in 2 decades." Whatever, dude.
You should wait 20 years and then come out with a YouTube video where you do that just to fuck with him.
Yeah, this is what I think. It's the Jesuits. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Paul's epistles that are just like, whoa, that's some weird stuff going on back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the verse. It is the simplest verse, but for me at 14 years old, it like broke my brain.
Sure.
And I'm going to give a little bit of backstory on this because like this is going to seem really anticlimactic, but that's climactic, not climatic. I'm not against the weather sometimes, but anticlimactic. But like that is the reason I had a problem with it. So it's in Luke 4, and it's basically where he's just come back from fasting for in the desert, and he comes back and he immediately starts like preaching, and he starts calling people out on some of the corruption that he was seeing. And the people in Jerusalem get so angry that they literally get him pushed up against a cliff, and they're wanting to push him off to kill him. And Luke, so yeah, it says, so it depends on the translation, but it'll say like, and they rose up and drove him out of the town, and brought him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they could throw him down the cliff. And some translations say, but he walked through and went away, or it says that he passed through. And as someone who I've like been in love with stories since I was a toddler. Like I love telling stories, I love watching stories, I love studying like the craft of stories. I was literally about 14 or 15 and going, what do you mean he just walked through? What do you mean he just passed through? And then if after that verse, it goes on to a completely new story.
It is very strange. You're right. It is so
strange because it doesn't give like for me I was like, okay, so what does this mean he walked through or he passed through? Does it mean that he was like Andre the Giant style and was like, everybody move, and they like suddenly got pushed and thrown back? Does it mean that like they tried to hurt him and they couldn't physically hurt him and so he kept walking forward? Does it mean he literally walked through them? Because if any one of those 3 things happened, half of the people there would have like thrown down their lives to be like, oh my gosh, he is the Messiah, and would have like dedicated their life to him. Half of the people would have been convinced he was a demon and let everybody in that area know, and he would have been crucified way sooner than he was. Right. And so if I can think of all of these like plot holes, like why didn't God?
Big plot hole. Yeah.
Like this is the thing that like I almost deconverted at like 14 or 15 years old because I read this and was like, who wrote this and thought this was a way you tell a story or document history or fucking whatever? Like,
and no, but that's such a good point, because if you're the Jews and living in Jerusalem, you're waiting. The Messiah is your idea. It's not the people in Rome who made this up. It's not the people in Egypt who made this up. This is your thing. You're the ones that want this Messiah to come. All of a sudden, one comes and does all these miracles, and you're going to be like, nah, I can't be him. And then everyone else wants to believe in him now. All of a sudden, that doesn't make sense. Because then you have to say this. You have to say that the Jews willingly decided to go against God by being the antagonist to Jesus the Messiah, knowing that he did all these miracles, knowing that on the time he gets crucified, the sky turns black and zombies come out of the grave. It says zombies came out of the freaking grave, and they're like,
right?
"No, still not him. Keep waiting."
I love bringing that up to Christians, being like, "So what do you think about the zombies in the Bible?" And they're like, "What?
We talk about the zombies. We don't know. We don't talk about the zombies here.
We don't talk about zombies."
No, but Michael Licona got in trouble for that. Michael Licona is a Christian scholar, the PhD, real scholar, and he made the claim that, well, maybe I think it's in Matthew where it says this verse, or John, one of the two. Let's just say Matthew. Maybe Matthew was just being theatrical because the other gospels don't have this. It's only in one of the gospels, Matthew. So it's like, how can Matthew be the only one who remembered this amazing event that nobody would ever forget in the rest of their life? But Matthew remembers it, and he's like, well, maybe Matthew's just being theatrical and it didn't really happen. He got banned from certain places to speak, like certain churches, mega churches, whatever.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, they were like, nope, no more Michael Licona. He's done.
Well, no, but even like, so did you watch the debate between Mike Licona and Bart Ehrman recently?
Yeah, lots of it. Not the whole thing, but I watched big chunks of it, yeah.
So though one of the things that really confused me was that he was literally making the claim that there has only been one resurrection in history, in all of history, and it was Jesus. And I'm like, how can you argue that his resurrection in the Bible, what literally happened, but all of the other resurrections in the Bible are metaphorical?
Right.
Like, how do you argue that?
Right. It's like Jesus resurrected somebody, so you're saying that didn't happen? Lazarus is resurrected. I just heard an echo. But no, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, how can you say that your own book is lying now, right? That's what he's saying.
Yeah, it's wild. Okay, so we did have a couple of
that's right.
Super chats. So
John Macker. I hope I'm saying your name right. If I'm not, please.
Probably either Mocker or Macher.
Macher.
And he probably gets the wrong one all the time. Whichever one I said that was wrong, he's like, oh.
Later, Scribe decided to throw in his own opinion. Probably. I think he's going back to what he said before with the Corinthians thing. Probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case in a lot of these areas in the Bible. Even Bart Ehrman, who's a textual criticism expert, he says there's no way of knowing that what we have in our Bibles today is what was written down in the original versions, because the original versions are gone. We have no way. It's all a guess. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, let's talk about this.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you, Gaius Windex, who's a watcher of my channel for some months now. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, buddy. What about Layers and Elijah? This is one of the ones that I actually did prepare today. And, let's read it. On Elisha's way to Bethel, some of the boys made fun of him, saying, "Go ahead, you bald head. Go ahead, Baldy." Elisha turned around, looked at them, issued a curse in the name of the Lord, bringing down 2 bears out of the woods to tear 42 of the boys to pieces. Like, whoa, dude. That's crazy.
No, so when the whole thing about the whole thing with the Oscars between like Will Smith and Chris Rock, like I don't condone violence, but one of the jokes I made was like, I'm not saying that Chris Rock got off easy, but 42 boys were mauled to death by bears because they made fun of Elisha's baldness.
They didn't get off so easy.
No.
And the crazy part about it is like, they're boys, first of all, and then it's like, where else? Like, what if this power is so easily attainable for God's prophets? Why didn't they do this in other areas where they really needed some like divine intervention?
Right?
Like Joseph is getting arrested. Why didn't he just be like, God, I need your help. Send down some bears to kill these Midianites so I can get out of here. Like, there's like 100 areas where you can think of something like that, but all of a sudden this time where it doesn't even matter, it's just a bunch of kids. Like, who cares? Just some kids.
Yeah. So here's one that is it's Deuteronomy 23:1, and it's talking about essentially that if your genitals have been damaged, to stay out of the temple. And so it literally says that he is wounded in the stones, or hath his privy member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. And the reason that, like, I mean, that in itself is like kind of, pretty ableist, but the reason why I just find that verse so funny is like, what the fuck do you think circumcision is?
So true.
Like,
another thing,
literally cutting off a piece of the genital, and yet it's like, if your genitals aren't intact, you can't come into the holiest place. Really?
And you know what else I don't understand about the circumcision thing is, like, you're basically saying God makes a mistake when he creates people. Like, I screwed up on this one thing. I need you guys to handle it when it comes up, once it gets into the real. You're still, it's like, aren't you not still creating people in heaven before they come to earth? Like, every single person is a mistake and they have to be fixed, and they have to, 7 days is a magical number somehow. Like, what's the point of? It's just so weird. It's so sketchy. And then you get people who argue that there's health benefits for it, and it's like, okay, well then why doesn't God just make them that way?
Right. Hey, Venus Craig says she's sassy. Courageous, is that in a good way or a bad way? Just curious.
Where is that? Oh, I see it now. Oh wait, that's before. Oh, there it is.
Because, like, yes, I can be spicy sometimes.
Nice.
But yeah, so yeah, that was something that, like, for me, I just always, like, I found to be very ironic and weird in the Bible, is that he, like, instructs his people to do something and then is like, but wonderful, thank you, Venus. but yeah, so that one was pretty wild. And then what was the other one? Oh, here's another thing, that because the entire Bible is written by the male gaze, and you get, like, because of the indoctrination that you're told to look at a story through a certain lens, I did not realize that David raped Bathsheba until I became an atheist.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the David thing gets a little bit even. The whole David narrative has a lot of crazy stuff surrounding it.
Yeah.
See if I can find I think this is it, right? Yep. So, right, this is in 2 Samuel. This is after your thing that you're talking about, where he rapes Bathsheba, which we could talk about. But then he gets punished for some of the stuff that he's doing, and the Lord says, "I will bring evil upon you and your own house. I will take your wives while you live to see it." Like, what the heck? What is it? This is God saying this to his anointed one, by the way. "And I will give them to your neighbor. He shall lie with your lives in broad daylight. You have done this deed in secret, but I will bring it to the presence of all of Israel." And David says, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan answers David, "The Lord on his part has forgiven your sin. You shall not die. But since you have utterly spurned the Lord by his deed, the child born to you must die." And the child does die 7 days later.
Yeah, so he rapes Bathsheba because, and I will fight someone about this, like, if you try to say it's not, because, like, he was a literal king and she was a fucking nobody, and like, there's no way that power exchange could have even remotely been equal, right? And then he murders her husband, and then God kills her baby. So, like, yeah, so that entire story is written through the male gaze because she has no agency, she has no personality, and she is used as a pawn for the male characters.
And you notice how even his own punishment is definitely, like you said, the women have no say in this. They're a part of they're a part of the deal. They have to be raped because it's his punishment, not their punishment. He's punished, so they get raped. Nothing happens to him. He just has to watch it. Oh, poor David. He has to watch these women get raped. It's so bad. So feel so bad for David. Like, what? Are you not reading what it's saying? Like, it's crazy. And then the child.
No, and, like, I mean, that does happen in the story, right? I think his son, like, does, in front of everybody, does, like, have sex with his David's concubines, but
yeah,
just like.
And then the child that
so he wasn't actually forgiven, I guess, because God was like, "Oh yeah, but you're forgiven, but your baby's gonna die. Oh wait, actually, all of those things I just said are actually going to happen because your family is going to turn against you because you've raped and murdered someone.
It's intense. It's
Which I'm not saying we should go easy on rapists, like,
right.
But Shireen, willing to kill your own child to show true love.
I guess that's the whole moral of the New Testament, right? He gives his only son.
I mean, it starts with like Abraham and Isaac, which is a whole bucket of like trauma that, like, I mean, I don't know, like, so I know that in Judaism they fully accept and admit that, and this is not debated amongst any like Jewish scholars for all I know, that like Moses never existed. I don't know if they feel the same way about Abraham, but
oh yeah, same thing.
Same thing. Okay.
There is zero archaeology, zero primary sources. His name's not mentioned anywhere in ancient history until the Bible.
Okay, so but it's still like, so like Abraham and Isaac never existed, but that's still super, super fucked up. And then they're like, okay, like let's do this, but like do it on a bigger scale now.
Right. Yeah. Because you see that motif popping up in different areas with David and, like you said, Abraham and Isaac, and I think it might be somewhere else as well. But like, yeah.
Well, Jephthah sacrifices his daughter.
Yeah.
And that, even though like, and God didn't come down and was like, oh, don't kill your kid. Like, you've proved your
it's just a
like,
daughter.
Yeah, go kill your daughter. We don't fucking care.
I mean, this is why, and like I said in the beginning, it's not just to make fun of it or say that, you know, we should never read these texts or study these texts ever again. But we do need to remind people that these texts are not inerrant and they have problems in the text. And it is a little crazy, a little uncomfortable, but we should look at it from, you know, remembering that we're living in a time period that we're in a better place, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know, which also I think other people should strive for. I think you shouldn't try to be holding on to these ancient ideas that are just toxic and just completely holding back the world from getting to a better spot altogether. Divisive, patriarchal, all that stuff, you know?
Well, and then also because one of the things that is kind of a byproduct of that is because of, I mean, I kind of just blame it on Revelations of like, because of Revelation saying that essentially this world is going to be destroyed in fire, and then God will bring about his kingdom, that like they don't care about the environment because this isn't their home. They're here to save as many souls as possible so that when they stand before God, that God can say, you were a good boy. And you know, and but like they don't feel like, and I'm not saying all Christians, because like I know Christians who care about the environment, but like the fundamental, you know, like evangelical Christians generally don't give a fucking shit about the environment because the Bible tells them not to.
Yeah.
And they're still trying to apply that today instead of being like, hey, they literally thought the world was going to end very soon. So why do you care about like the planet if the whole world is going to end within the next like 2 years, right? But it didn't, and it hasn't. And like, what?
Well, I just thought of something. I'm looking this up. I was looking this up while you were saying that, and I agree with what you're saying. It's just problematic. It leads to problematic thinking, like no matter what.
And then the fact that they think that Revelation and John were written by the same person when John was written in super advanced Greek, and the person who wrote Revelation did not know Greek super well.
And by the way, another thing to add to that, the person that wrote Revelation says, I'm John, I'm in Patmos. The person who wrote John, they didn't title that name John till like 180 that never was John until way later. So It's like people later on are just like, yeah, it's the same John. But it's like, no, they didn't even think that in the beginning.
Okay, John was like a super common name. It's still a super common name. Every fifth person names their kid John or James. Like,
even in Israel, Yohanan was a really popular name. Like the high priest Yohanan there was a lot of those, and like John the Baptist, like, you know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of them. But what I was going to say was, I defended Jesus earlier. And I was talking about how Paul wants women to cover their heads, and he's against them. Well, Paul, I should put in quotes, whoever wrote these epistles, there's all these verses about who will attain the kingdom of heaven. And the idolaters won't go, the adulterers won't go, the homosexuals won't go. Women should cover their heads, all that stuff. And I was talking about how Jesus says that anybody who believes in me will make the kingdom of heaven. I try to make them look good there, but I have to debunk myself for a second, because in Matthew 15, when they're at the table, and the Canaanite woman walks up to the table, and she's at the table, and they're eating their bread and they're drinking their wine. It's him and the 12 disciples, and he says, "It is not right to take children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Talking about the Canaanite woman who's walking up to see Jesus. And she says, "Yes, Lord, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." And he goes, "Oh, woman, your faith is so great. Let it be known, for you are as you desire." And her daughter was healed. She's asking for her daughter to be healed. Anyways, if you actually look at what they're saying, they're comparing women to dogs. Like she's coming to ask to get someone healed, and all the 12 disciples are sitting there like, "Who's this dog over here?" Like it's like literally calling her a bitch, literally.
Let the dogs out.
Right. Like that's I mean, I guess you can argue that Jesus is kind of just going with the flow of the situation, but he does say it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs, talking about her. He says that. So he's not doing anything to help the situation. That's bad.
Yeah. Makes me think of in When Harry Met Sally, where she's like, "Are one of us supposed to be the dog in this scenario?" And he's like, "Yes." And she's like, "Who?" And he's like, "You." And she's like, "I'm the dog? I'm the dog?"
That's crazy.
Yeah. Such a great movie. So then and then the other part is that and I'm totally blanking on the verse. I was trying to Google it, and like ADHD just can't brain. Is in the Old Testament, our sin is compared to filthy rags.
Right.
Those are menstrual rags. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about menstrual rags, that the sin in all of our lives is like women menstruating and having to use the products because that's how God supposedly designed them. And yet it's like a metaphor for how disgusting and sinful and gross we are, is the fact that we have this very normal bodily function and therefore need products for it.
I've also heard people say that the phrase "born of a woman" of the flesh, or according to the law, according to the flesh, is a phrase he's saying that you're born into sin because we're born from a woman. Like men can't give birth. Because of that alone, that's why we're born into sin.
Which, like, then it's like, why did God choose a woman to give birth to Jesus then?
Doesn't make any sense.
Like, how can you think that like that, but also think like Jesus should have been born through Joseph? Like, if God really wanted to show off, he'd be like, "Look at what I did."
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, it's just like.
But like what you're saying, it makes it's pretty profound actually, because it's like, okay, you're saying that, I don't know, maybe you're connecting this to Adam and Eve, and Eve's the one that was tricked, which is like, yes. How would she know? She has no idea what this. She just was created like yesterday, and it's her fault. It's like, imagine
she wasn't there to hear God's instruction. God instructed it before he makes her.
Yeah, so, he makes her into the character that's supposed to be the fall person. Like it's her fault. Like
that's like why one of my friends, her username is Eve was framed.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
she was. I mean, if he's all knowing and all omnipotent, all the omnis, if
they didn't possess the knowledge to know why something was wrong,
right?
You know, like if you don't know the difference between good and evil, you don't know. So people are saying like, "Oh, but God gives us free will because he doesn't want robots." Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
he does. Like, that's literally the verse that you showed up at the beginning was like, hate your parents, hate your kids, hate your fucking life, everything in your world except for God, because he doesn't want you to have connections with other people and to like
Well,
what?
that's the thing. And then another thing is the last thing I want to say
He's
about
so
this.
possessive.
And if Jesus really was the savior who's supposed to save us from the sin of Adam and Eve, we're born into sin, right? And Jesus saved us. Then why are we still here? Why isn't heaven here yet? Why are we still all living in sin? What's the point? What was the whole point of the resurrection? There's no point.
I mean, yeah, because like if he fulfilled the law, then the law, like, we either should all still be following the law, which means all of the 600
13.
laws, 614, or it means that none of the laws should, like, because he fulfilled it, he, like, none of the laws should matter anymore. So why do you keep bringing up, like, the 10 commandments? Why do you keep bringing up Leviticus? Like, why do you keep being like, yeah, so I can eat shellfish, but I can eat pork, but you can't be gay.
Right. That's exactly. What's the difference? They're both just one of the laws. What's the difference? But it's like, and that's where you see political.
I know I say like a lot.
Melody Joy just became a member. Melody, thank you so much.
Yay.
You're the best. Someone else became a member at the before the show even started. I forgot to mention this. Let me just go back. Joanne Kerr, thank you. I just started the membership thing a couple days ago, and people are starting to join. That's awesome. Really appreciate it. I hope I can do. I'm trying to upload daily and give people as much stuff. Have on as many guests as possible. Trying to, really, really work for people who support me. So I appreciate that. And then there was another one that came up. Oh yeah, thank you, Melody, by the way.
Yeah.
And super chat. Ted Francis says, "Good talk." Thank you, Ted. Thank you.
Yeah, I was really nervous tonight, so I just have anxiety. But
Yes,
so
I do
yeah,
too. I do too. Yeah, it's one of those things that once I get going, I'm fine. But yeah, it is a little. I know how it is. I'm trying to think of if anything else you want to talk about, or
Oh, I guess, like, I mean, it comes back to, like, women not being, like, fully respected as human beings, but, the verse where it instructs like, a woman that she has to marry her rapist.
I have that. I think.
And, the thing is that I will hear,
here it is.
yeah.
If a man
So
is caught in the act of raping a young woman and who is not engaged, he must pay then he must marry the young woman because he violated her, and he will never be allowed to divorce her. Whoa, wow, that's so good for the woman, right? Whoa, she won that deal, right?
right, it's like, people will be like, "Oh, no, but that was a protection because once a
That's
woman,"
even worse.
yeah, like,
It's
they
the
were like,
guy.
because then she wouldn't be worth anything. And it's like, if your God was a genuinely just God, then instead of that being written in your holy book, it would have been like, hang the rapist and treat the woman as if her value is exactly the same as before, because she still has value even though someone else, like, like, why was, and you have to marry your rapist, the best that God could come up with.
That's just like, and that to me, if that doesn't tell you that this book's not inerrant, that people with less education and maybe they were smart, maybe they were smart in other areas, maybe they were good at doing certain things and good at writing these elaborate myths and all that stuff, but they weren't socially up to where we're at, right? Is that what I'm getting at?
So
If that's not enough for you right there, then I don't know what to tell you. You just are missing the whole point here. That's, you know what I mean?
So B plus Brain J1565 says that Jesus was made to make God more inclusive, still with exceptions by proxy, though. I would actually kind of generally disagree with that, because Jesus never intended for his message, like, he was a Jewish rabbi, or maybe not even a rabbi, because you had to be married to be a rabbi. And so he never intended for the faith to be inclusive towards non-Jews. And the reason for that is, one, in Judaism, they don't have a hell. They have Sheol, which is more of like a purgatory, but the maximum amount of time that you would be there is for 11 months. To like purify your soul before either you go to heaven, you get reincarnated, or your soul gets destroyed. And so, and you don't have to be Jewish to get to heaven. You just have to follow the 7 laws of Noah.
Yeah.
Essentially, like, you have to be a good person, and they don't have to. So like that is one of the big reasons why people who are not Jewish that try to convert to Judaism, they're like, don't have to follow the 600 laws when you only have to follow 7 right now.
I've heard that.
And
Paul, heard that same thing told me before. Yeah,
but Paul is the one who decided that, like, in order to spread this message and have it have the most impact, we need to open up the faith to the Gentiles and make them not have to change the way they're, like, basically, like, they don't have to follow the 614 laws. And that was never Jesus's intention. People believe it's his intention because Paul claims to have had an encounter with Jesus, and because it's in the Bible and it's inerrant, that therefore it has to be true.
Right.
But if you look at the life of Jesus within the Gospels, he was pretty prejudiced towards non-Jews.
It says right here in Matthew 15:24, I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's it. And then later on, he talks about not one thing of the laws of Moses will be changed. Not one thing. Yet Paul's like, yeah, change that, change this, change that. But Jesus says not one thing uttered from Moses should be changed. All of it will stay. So you get a lot of that. And I guess what you can take away from it, because I see where this person's coming from. They're saying, just believe in me and you get to heaven. Okay, I get that. Good point. But it's also, you're almost making more of a barrier now, because now that's the only way to make it. Whereas before, you just be a good person and you'll be judged according to your sins. It says it all over the Old Testament. People will be judged according to their life. Like, you're judged on who you are.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you had Jesus, or if you didn't, you're screwed. So it makes it more, it almost makes it more not inclusive in a weird way. Because like, what happens to the Aborigines who never get taught about Jesus? And all of them live perfect lives and just do family stuff all day and never sin. Oh, nope, didn't know Jesus, going to hell. See?
I mean, but that's also because some of them believe if you don't know Jesus and you've never been given the opportunity to know Jesus, that God will, like, have mercy on you and, like, you will go to heaven. Some of them believe, like, well, they're just fucked. But some of them actually do that. And if you do that, then missionary work is the cruelest thing in evangelical, like, being an evangelical Christian is the cruelest thing that you can do to that person if you genuinely believe it. Because if you believe that, like, God would automatically just send those souls to heaven, and then you give them the opportunity to learn about Jesus, you are now giving, like, you're now, I had a thought and I just totally lost it.
No, but what you're saying is true, because it's like, so I just lost my thought too, actually. No, what
well, just that, like, if that's what you truly believed, then telling people about Jesus and informing him about it so that they have the opportunity to reject him.
That's what I was going to say. Is
the cruelest thing.
Well, and that's the thing. They said, I hear a lot of Christians argue that the ones who never get the gospel, who are just they're Aborigines somewhere or something, those people, they say, are just NPCs created by God, like another animal somewhere. And they say that they'll say that even those people probably would have rejected God's word anyway. So who cares?
That's so racist.
Yeah, so bad.
Is so racist.
I'm not. If you don't believe me, just look it up. Like,
no. I totally believe you, because there's a lot of racism in white evangelical Christianity. That's why it is white evangelical Christianity. Right. But yeah, no, like, that is to actually be like, these other people of color that I don't know are therefore just pawns in God's plan.
Yeah.
And they're like, I mean, and that's part of, like, I made a TikTok recently because Captain Dadpool and an apologist were going back and forth as to whether God raped Mary. And when because, like, God doesn't ask her for her permission. He tells her what is going to happen to her, and she's only like 14, and children also can't give their consent. So it's pretty, like, I don't know, when you read the Bible, it's pretty clear, but like Christians will try to do like mental gymnastics to try to explain it. And one person in the comments was like, this isn't human to human, this is God to a person he created. And so it doesn't matter if Mary was okay with it or not, God knows better for her. And I said, I made a TikTok responding to it, being like, that attitude is exactly why evangelical church struggles with the concept of consent so much. Because if someone is above your authority and you can't question it, then that is where, like, even if your rights are violated, if it's by someone who is above you in authority, then you can't question it. Or if it's a person speaking for God, then you can't question it. And that is how so much abuse gets normalized within the church and seen as a good thing half the time.
Right.
With all the shit that's come out about John MacArthur, there are still people that don't believe that it's true and are willing to stand behind him. And it's just like, how do you not see this as the big, huge fucking problem that it is? Because they would have to actually look inward and start asking really difficult questions about the fundamentals of their religion.
Yeah.
One of the things that Seth Andrews said at the convention that I loved was, if there's a problem with the fundamentalists in your religion, then there's a problem with the fundamentals.
I love it.
I know. I was like, I'm going to remember that for like the rest of my life.
Yeah, like we're living in a weird time where people are like, it's like people are still, this is still a major thing in our, especially in America. Like, I know Europe is a little more progressed than us when it comes to religion. Not that it's perfect. They still have their radicals over there. But here in this country, we have, it's so ingrained in politics. Abortion laws only exist because of one thing and one thing only, because of Christianity. There's no people, I mean, there might be some, but like for the most part, like 99% of the people that think abortion should be a law are because they're some sort of Christian or religious background. And that is affecting people's lives today, which is a primitive thing. Like, we should be way past this. But because people are holding on to these old ancient things, we still
and
have.
like at this point, like, because without, because like, yeah, I was like, I literally put my hands up being like, oh my gosh, bitch, like, if we start talking about Christian nationalism and the problem, I'm gonna just go on a fucking rant because I get so fired up about this, especially this week with there being the initial like opening arguments for the Kennedy versus Bremerton case. And I don't know how familiar you are with the case. Well, I'm just like, you probably might. I don't know how much the audience is familiar with it, but like, this is something I am super passionate about, because this coach was forcing his students to pray with him at the 50-yard line after games. And when I was in high school, I was in choir and debate in a small town. And before every performance, we were made to pray. And I was a Christian at the time. And I was not a like just show up on Sunday Christian. I was like super, super passionate about it. And I was going to church like multiple times a week. And yet these prayers were so awkward. And part of it is because I've always had problems with group prayers, especially the way that evangelical Christians will do it, because it's just like in Matthew, Jesus says to pray in private, don't pray in public,
right,
on the corners like the Pharisees do. And I was like, so this is just a fucking spectacle for your ego. I don't like, even as a teenager, I was like, I don't like this. But the other reason is because I had social anxiety and I had no idea at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so like these were very uncomfortable prayers, and I would look around for the other kids that didn't feel included during that time, and we kind of had this special bond, and we would just try not to laugh even though they were very uncomfortable. And like technically we could have left the room if we wanted to, but everyone would have noticed.
Social
And
pressure.
you would have been like the weird one out.
Yep.
And as a teenager, like that's devastating for a kid, like, you can try to be like, oh, well, you shouldn't care about what other people think. Like, of course, like, we shouldn't, but we do. And like, that's like at like 16, 17 years old. And like, I had no idea that our constitutional rights were being violated, that it wasn't the school's place to tell us how to practice our faith, which faith to have, or if we should even have it. And so, like, I'm very passionate about this case, and like the other side, the side for Kennedy, the coach, has like literally thrown like $1 million behind this to try to make it to where essentially any teacher, any government, to employee with kids can violate their religious freedom. And that is just like terrifying. I'm personally, like, at this point, I believe that Christian nationalism is the greatest existential threat to our democracy.
I think so too.
Like, yeah,
it's the one thing that's holding back. I think it's the one thing that's holding everything back, holding us back. Oh yeah. I
have been reading this. Okay, this way.
Let me make you full for a second so that people can. There we go.
Okay. Oh no, you can see my mess. I will put the book in front of my mess.
I have a big mess behind me too. Who cares?
So so this is The Founding Myth: Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American, and by Andrew L. Seidel. He is a friend of mine, and I have been adoring this book. He has a new book coming out in September. It's called American Crusade: How the Supreme Court is weaponizing religious freedom. And so I'm really excited to hear about that. Bill, I wanted to get the audiobook, but I heard a sample of the narrator and I really didn't like it. I know that Andrew wanted to narrate the book himself, but because of his contract, he couldn't. And that has like let me know that if I ever publish anything, that I'm going to do it self-published, or I'm going to make sure I have a really, really good agent who can negotiate things for me, because I get to choose like what my audiobook sounds like.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a good. But you know what? Back to what you were saying about
let's get back to the point. Sorry, ADHD.
No, it's fine. So this is the biggest thing that's holding back not just America, but just like, civilization. Because if you think about it, people in this day and age are gay, they're trans, we have people who are, who are in minority positions. We have people who need to have abortions because they might have been raped, or maybe there's a situation where the family's not going to be right, or they're just whatever. There's a million reasons why people need abortions. All these things that are happening in modern society. And the only people that are opposing these normal things that are completely 100% normal things are people of religious background. That's it. And that's it. And if we can, I'm not trying to abolish religion and be like, people shouldn't have worship God, or they shouldn't try to connect themselves to the divine. Because there are a lot of people who, it gives them a sense of purpose to have something to worship. And they like going to the past. They like reading the Bible. They like reading Greek mythology or Norse mythology. And I support all that, but it's like, we have to remember that we live in a society, and we can't try to say, God says this, therefore you're wrong, even though it's natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that because I get so frustrated, like, especially with the grooming narrative that they keep spinning. Because like, I just want to like fucking yell at people to be like, we are not the side grooming kids. This is not what we are doing. Like, there's probably one kooky teacher out there, and the majority, like 99% of everyone on the left would be like, what the fuck are you doing with these kids? Right?
There's no one doing it. It's not happening.
Not in a public school. Like, not like that. Because like, I'll even like be talking, like, because I like had one of my theist friends that were like, no, like, we have to protect the kids. And I'm like, protect them from what? And they were like, well, there's this summer camp where where the people were like teaching kids how to masturbate. And I'm like, a summer camp? Is this like, I was like, I'm going to need concrete evidence that this was a school summer camp that was endorsed by this school. I'm going to need sources about this, because otherwise you're just fear mongering.
Exactly.
Because Like, and
what's even
and
worse
then,
though is the other way around, is that you in these Bible schools, people are taught that you're bad if you feel a certain way. And then so those people grow up all mentally screwed up, because they're like, I feel this way, but I'm told that it's wrong. So something must be wrong with me. I must be bad. And then those people end up in drug addiction, or end up all types of horrible places, because they were told when they were 4 years old that they're bad because of that.
well, and like, so, and then the other thing that drives me crazy is when I say we're not the side grooming kids, we're not. It is the right, because the right is the one who, like, literally just a couple of weeks ago, they proposed a bill in Tennessee to eliminate the marriage requirement, or the age requirement for marriage, to eliminate it. There's been nearly 300,000 child marriages in the US. You can Google it. Since the year 2000, nearly 300,000, some as young as 10 years old. 86% are girls to men.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it's like, we're not the side that is grooming kids. Like, the person who proposed the bill met his wife when he was like 50 and she was 16, and then he married her when she was 19. Why does he want to eliminate the it's because, like, they want to get a, if you value, if because of purity culture, if you value a virgin girl who will be submissive and obey, and like, then you need to get them young and groom her into the woman that you want her to be.
Right.
Like, that's terrifying.
It's terrifying.
And like, the reason that they'll fight, because every time, there's 44 states where child marriage is still legal, and anytime you try to raise, like, they like try to raise the marriage limit, it's the GOP that shoots it down. They're like, but what if they're in the military, or what if they get pregnant? And it's like, I don't care if they got pregnant. A 16-year-old should not be getting married. A 15-year-old should not be getting married. So the only reason that you feel like they should get married is because of purity culture, because, oh, there's, like, because you think it's a sin to have sex before marriage, and so you need to get these kids married so they stop sinning. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that sins are redeemed through marriage.
Right.
Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. And yet 99% of evangelical Christians act like that's somewhere in the Bible.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It's crazy. And
like, Paul says, if you burn with desire and you can't help it, like, you should get married. But that doesn't mean that your sins suddenly got redeemed, because, and I would hear that a lot, being like, well, but it's okay because they're married. You see that with Melania Trump. She literally did porn with other women. And yesterday, Franklin Graham, I think it was Franklin Graham, no, Billy Graham, maybe, I don't know, one of the Grahams, they tweeted out a happy birthday to the former first lady. And it's just like, okay, so you condemn same-sex, like, sex work, like, all of these things, but the former first lady who did all of those things, you're like, may God continue to bless her. And it's just like, it's because, well, but she's married now.
Right. And she's their Messiah's wife, so they have to be.
Right.
And by the way, first of all, Gina, thank you for the super chat.
Yes, thank you, Gina.
Appreciate that. But just to add to what you just said, that the whole thing, so when you take a step back from all this and you see how all these people in this sort of Christian right, they're Messiah, and some people call him Messiah, by the way. This is not, people actually call him that. They call him
It's a cult.
They'll
It
say,
is
he's a little M Messiah like Cyrus. But the irony about this is, when you take a step back and see, their Messiah is a guy who stole money from small businesses his whole life, who started fake universities and robbed people of their money, who have like multiple wives and was a playboy and didn't care and talk about grabbing girls from the you know what. And that's
right.
And like, I'm sorry to people who are watching this who are like not far right, but like, you lean that way because of your business or whatever. I'm sorry about that. I'm not talking about you guys, but this is a big deal.
Right. The majority of conservatives. So like when we're talking about those particular people, it's about 30% of the people who are like on the right. And it's those people are just exceptionally loud. In our country, the dumbest people are the loudest.
Yeah.
You know, so that is not like I have, you know, even like my dad who voted for Trump twice. You know, like he did not like he calls the insurrectionists like the insurrection an unconstitutional act.
Right.
He's not like trying to defend it. He doesn't like say, oh, well, that was Antifa. Like he doesn't do that. Like, you know, so it's like, oh yeah, we're definitely not talking about all Christians or all conservatives. We are specifically talking about the like Trumpians, like out of the Trumpsters, like
the Messiah, Trump's the Messiah type people. That's all.
Yeah. And it is because like, but at the same time, I kind of get it though, because who the fuck was Paul before he, you know, when he was Saul, he was murdering Christians, or at least that's what he claims. And so it's like they could be like, oh, but like he's changed now.
That's what they say. That's what they always point to.
He hasn't changed a damn thing. He's always been that person. Like,
and you know he's not a real Christian. You know, he's just doing it because he knows.
I don't think anyone's a real Christian because God doesn't exist. But I do think there are some people that genuinely try to live out the ideals in the Bible because they believe Jesus stands for them. And no, he does not aspire to meet any one of those ideals.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like to throw the "knows true Scotsman" right back at them when they were like, "You are never a real Christian." I'm like, "There's no such thing as a Christian because Jesus like isn't alive." Like, God doesn't exist.
I can't stand when people say it to me. I'm like, "Do you realize that my last day in church was me going to another church to get baptized again to see if it would work again? Like, do you think that's not a real Christian that I was trying that hard to make it work?" And I'm like, and I was driving home from that church in tears, being like, why am I losing my faith? That to me is like, that doesn't make any sense when your Bible says just give a mustard seed and you'll have as much faith as whatever, the tree or whatever. Like that doesn't add up. Like I'm walking example of why it's not true. But it's only
Theophilus, like I said, like this is not about someone being right-leaning or being like conservative. This is about like specifically the people who have essentially treated Trump like the next Messiah.
Yeah, exactly. But this has been a really fun talk, and I think
I've really enjoyed this. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. We'll definitely do it again soon. And by the way, what I already told them about your channel. By the way, it's in the description too. The links for both your TikTok and the Unholy Trinity. They're both in the description right now.
Wonderful. Do you have I didn't tell you about this, so I can like send you a link later. But do you have for PSF the Women Atheists Unload?
No, but I can add that to the description right after we're done, and then you can.
Okay, awesome. Because
tell them right now where that is.
Yeah, so there's a channel, it's called PSF, it's Prometheus Secular Frontier, and they have a lot of different shows under that channel, but one of them is one that I help produce and is called Women Atheists Unload, just to talk about a lot of, I mean, the ways of like religious trauma and how that impacts women and impacts like whether like they were encouraged to have careers or not. And like when you're deconstructing, there's a lot of ways that impacts you. And so we also, try to make it as inclusive for people within the LGBT community. And like, it's not just like that we only have women on the show. It's just kind of addressing the like how it's unique to us with that experience. But then also I am kind of a fun announcement, exciting. So I don't know if you're familiar with that GD show. It's that Genevieve and Dave show.
Yeah.
With Genevieve from TikTok and with Dave Warnock. But I'm actually going to start producing that show as well. I think I'm going to be doing the 16th is when I will be producing for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I have a lot of things up in the air, and
that's awesome.
A lot of times I am like more behind the scenes, but I've started getting more in front of the camera too, and that's been really fun.
That's good. It's good to see that. And I'm really happy you came, and this was fun.
Yeah, thank you. Like, once again, thank you so much for inviting me. I was kind of like very pleasantly surprised when you were like, "Hey, do you want to come on my show and talk shit about the Bible?" And I was like, absolutely. Why is he asking me? I don't know shit." But
Twitter, and I just thought, oh, she knows what she's talking about. She knows this shit. Why not? I like to.
No, it's just the imposter syndrome, you know.
So that's why I reached out. But this was how we're gonna have so far. So.
And yeah, and if you do decide to follow me on Twitter, I don't know if you have my Twitter down in the description.
Yeah, I put that in there too. I'll put that in there too.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I am like, and I actually just recently had a TikTok, or not a TikTok, a tweet that has gotten quite a few people's attention because my dad created a Twitter account and he started following me, and I was like, y'all, I share atheist, feminist, LGBTQ plus, leftist content. So, and my dad voted for Trump twice. He is a conservative constitutionalist and believes in the inherency doctrine. So, and he's a Calvinist. So this is about to get interesting. Is interesting the right word? And I had like a bunch of people in my comments being like, I am following you right now because I have to know what this is like and like what is going to happen next. And yeah, I share a lot of stuff and then I also, if you just like memes, I share a fuck ton of memes.
Yeah. And they're good too. You share a good one.
Yeah. People be like, where do you find these memes? I'm like, I find them in the forest.
Nice.
Yeah, so thank you everyone who I had some friends that stopped by, and thank you for everyone else who enjoyed this discussion. I know I said like a lot or probably but I'll get more comfortable with it as I keep doing it.
Yeah, I do too. We all do it. It is what it is. But
he did say he would date his daughter.
Oh, nice.
If Ivanka wasn't related to him.
Nice.
There's no problem with that.
All right, well, like I always say, you have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis. The demiurge has no power over